The Souls-like umbrella has been reformatted and constructed under various directive lenses, which shows how much the cultural impact the genre has had and how adaptable it is. It's their collective, omnipresent sense of dread and carefully emitted trepidation. Ender Lilies Quietus of the Nights is a title that, while still adhering to expected conventions of the genre, nothing comes close to ruining the majestical ambiance this artistic game evokes. Ender Lilies has players take control of a young woman named Lily, exploring the kingdom of Land's End. Within this set of once noble, historic architecture, a puzzling rainfall dubbed the Rain of Death cloaked the land and transformed living beings into undead creatures called the Blighted. However, the narrative here is not the driving force of the experience, as it is delivered lightly throughout the adventure. Instead, you'll probably be here for the gameplay itself. Ender Lilies is an action title requiring timed evasions, hits, and other maneuvers. It's a game of dexterity, patience, and ingraining of patterns, much like other Souls-likes. While games of this genre are typically regarded as brutally difficult, Ender Lilies is quite the opposite. Lily's movement pool is limited as she can only jump and dodge. Combat is performed via extensions of her moveset from beings called spirits. These are collected from around the map through battles, and each has their own strengths for various situations. However, the default spirit and one most often used is the Umbral Knight. Unlike other spirits, which have cooldowns and a specific number of usages, the Umbral Knight is infinitely usable and is essentially the foundation of combat in its entirety. He can only perform a simple series of slashes, but his efficiency and speed at doing so are reliably paramount to succeeding against all manner of foes. If there's one critique I have with the combat, it's how there's a distinct lack of combo variations and creativity with what players can employ. For instance, as clearly portrayed as the Umbral Knight slashes are, there is not much else to perform with his fundamental capabilities. As a result, enemies can quickly grow mundane, even with the other spirits you obtain. Other mechanics can potentially supplement the simplicity depending on the player's preference and expectations. Spirits can be enhanced from materials found throughout the world. Relics are equipable accessories that serve to boost select parameters. However, both features are merely one-and-done tasks, with light implementation, and mimic the approachable coherence the combat offers. Bosses are certainly a highlight of the experience and are, on paper, what one would expect from Souls-like bosses, though due to the approachability of the game, these bosses are mostly unchallenging. The latter bosses require some skills, but those experienced in the genre will likely spend very little time on these encounters. Patterns are few in number, and telegraphs are quite obvious. A lack of combat complexity is not an inherent negative. Still, the monotony of overtly categorized repeated actions can easily be a turnoff for prospective players expecting more. I wouldn't describe the combat as mind-numbingly easy or thoughtless, since avoiding enemy telegraphs and applying proper spacing is imperative, but it can seem to be more tailored to those not adept to the genre. Ender Lilies steps away from difficulty and focuses on enhancing other aspects of the experience. Exploration is a significant part of the gameplay. Backtracking to prior areas with newly found movement abilities is at the forefront of the Metroidvania experience, and Ender Lilies applies this philosophy in its design. Thankfully, the newly found paths are usually rewarding, with new spirits and items being at their end. If I had to choose one trait Ender Lilies excels in, it's undoubtedly its atmosphere. The developers expertly craft this masterful sense of uneasy yet simultaneously comforting sense of whispering ambiance from the very opening segments of gameplay. The soundtrack plays an integral role in this feeling, with its vocals and instruments embracing the sorrowful, melancholy tone the premise creates. The art style does a fantastic job of portraying this strength, as it is both endearing and frightening in several fashions. Lily herself is far from the typical expected protagonist one would expect from a game of this nature. She feels foreign, to the extent her presence in this grotesque, shoddy environment can seem uncomfortable. Her cutesy drawn animations beautifully mesh well with the gorgeous sceneries. From the haunting depth of the forest to the majesty of the castle, I truly can't exemplify enough how much the backgrounds wowed me in every turn and every scene transition. I also can't even begin to imagine the number of hours and effort it must take to create a world such as this one. Ender Lilies Quietus of the Nights is a standout experience. From its speedy combat to its breathtaking visuals, there's something for any action-loving fan. The minimal challenge may not mesh well with hardcore players, but exploring this dreary world is rewarding enough. Thankfully, the influences of this adventure only supplement its unique action systems. Noisy Pixel is giving Ender Lilies Quietus of the Nights a 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Please read the full review at noisypixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.